Welcome to Not Starving Artist, the podcast. I'm your host, Brooke Benson, money coach and equity actor. I am your financial cheerleader, here to help you build your financial confidence and have power over your money. The best part, no budgeting or bi-weekly paychecks required. I went from being a broke BFA grad having weekly panic attacks about money to a financially confident, wealth-building actor and business owner. Money gets to feel fun, simple, and sexy, and I am going to show you how. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. We're talking about safety today. Safety has been brought into question recently at a large scale on a lot of fronts. And so why we're talking about financial safety today is because a lot of times our anxiety, our stress will latch on and hyperfixate on money and our bank accounts because it's trying to find a solution to something that might not have a solution, right? Or needs to be like emotionally regulated through. But it really loves to latch on to money. There's also a sense of like when our safety comes into question, sometimes there's an energy of like, well, fuck it, right? And just let me tap out of everything. Let me disassociate from everything. Who knows how long we're going to be here kind of situation. And we just fuck it with our money. And so we're going to hyper focus today, zero in on what can you tactically do? What are the markers of financial safety that you can see in your bank account? What are the things that you should have financially for a safety net? And then everything else on top of that your brain is telling you need to do is probably your anxiety talking, or like bigger goals, trying to have like 2 years of savings put aside. Like that's probably your anxiety talking, or that's a hyperfixation. And a lot of times we feel like when we hit a certain money goal, all of a sudden our anxiety or our stress will dissipate because we've hit the goal that tells us it's going to be safe. And that's usually not the case. There always needs to be emotional and mental work that's done alongside hitting those money goals to actually create the safety that you desire. Because, and again, we're like, our safety at large, right? Am I safe? Are my neighbors in my community safe? Are people at large safe? Those are really big questions that aren't directly tied to money. But of course, money touches everything, right? So money is tied to those questions in some respect of like, are you able to put yourself in a position where you will have to pay money if something happens because you've put yourself in harm's way? Or like, are you able to call out of work because your safety's in question? Are you able to move? Are you able to travel? Like there are things that are directly tied to that. But also this sort of stuff, and we're being inundated with it, right? Like images, news, and videos. That is, at least, I mean, for me, right? I know for so many of you too, it's just, we're in such a state of activation right now that we're trying to figure out how to solve for it and how to dispel it and how to make it better and how to create safety. And again, this is where then the hyperfixation on the bank accounts and trying to solve everything through the bank accounts is coming. And then when that doesn't work, then we get stressed. But also, we need to make sure we are creating that financial safety net for ourselves, because there are things we're going to need to use that money for that can actually create safety for us. So there's this happy middle ground that we need to find, which is talking to the logistical part of our brain spaces, the very analytical part of like what equals financial safety. And I'm going to walk you all through this too. There's 4 things that I'm going to tell you about, like number wise, what you should have or what you should focus on when it comes to safety. We have to use that part of our brain to talk to our heart part and be like, okay, so we have the financial safety. If you're not feeling safe right now, that's okay. I'm going to remind you over and over and over again that if something happens, we have the money to take care of it. But at the end of the day, there are a lot of what ifs right now. And wow, that's really scary to be sitting with that many what ifs. Wow, that's really hard to be sitting and watching a lot of people's safety come into question. Like, what do we need then emotionally, nervous system regulation wise? Also, like, can we take some of that and dispel it and put it into action and getting involved in our communities or contributing to the world in the way that we're supposed to contribute to this world, the way that you were meant to be put on this world to contribute, right? Can we channel that into action, right? Which is one of the best antidotes for anxiety. Again, as someone who has anxiety, that is the best antidote for anxiety that I have found. And this is not, you all know, I feel like at this point I don't have to make disclaimers, right? But like, medication, yes. Therapy, yes. And also we have to take some of that and we have to turn it into action, right? So we're not just in our heads about it all the time, trying to solve it in our journals. Our journals can only go so far, and I say that as an avid journaler. Okay, so safety, financial safety. First things first, 2 things can be true. 1, it is extremely important to build yourself a financial safety net so that if something happens that's unexpected, you still have food, shelter, water, right? That's what a financial safety net is. And you can prepare for every single possible worst case scenario, and you will still never be able to outrun every single what if, okay? This is an existential thing that we all have to come to terms with, is that you could live till you're 110 and you could also die tomorrow, right? There will always be a worse what if that you have not prepared for that could come out of nowhere, okay? Now, that is a very unlikely scenario. That a really horrible what if that you have never planned for, that you could not have avoided, would come out of the blue, right? And come at you. But at the end of the day, a lot of times what we try and do with our money goals, with our finances, is outrun every possible bit of uncertainty or what ifness, okay? And that is impossible. Especially as artists and creatives, those of us who are self-employed, right? If you have chosen a life where you have chosen a life of fluctuation, you have chosen a life of magic and uncertainty, complementary, right? Like you have chosen that life. There are going to be so many inherent what ifs in your lifestyle. We can't outrun those, right? And I mean, I venture to say too, especially this day and age, that if you have chosen a career path that you are, even if you're extremely passionate about it, but that has a 9-to-5 like stability, biweekly paycheck built in, even that's not stable anymore, right? I never really was stable, but like now that we can't, instability is now a part of our lives. And that doesn't have to be a horrible thing, right? And a lot of us signed up for that. So we need to make peace with what ifs and uncertainty, okay? Emotionally and in our heart spaces, in our mental spaces. And then what are the practical things we need to do in our bank account to support a reasonable amount of uncertainty that we can plan for in our most likely scenarios in our lives, okay? We're gonna get there in a second, okay? So the other thing I want to say is that artists, creatives, those of us with fluctuating income, self-employed, business owners, a lot of us just want safety and stability. We have been taught from day one that our goal, that our marker of success is to pay the bills with the thing that you love doing. Do you hear how crazy that sounds? Like when we really slow it down and think about it. Success equals being able to pay the bills. That's crazy. Okay? But that's what we're taught. Like we are supposed to be elated if all we are doing is paying the bills with the stuff that we were built to do, that we enjoy doing, that we are meant to be doing. Okay? So we are hardwired to think of like stability and baseline safety as like, you've done it. You hit the finish line. You're living the dream. Okay? So when we're hardwired in that way, when that's the narrative going on in our brain, we are so focused on safety and stability that like our nervous systems and our brains are only focused on solving for safety and stability. Meaning we are telling ourselves day in and day out, we are not safe yet. We are not stable yet. Okay? And so when that's what's running through your brain 24/7, of course you're going to be anxious. Of course you're going to be stressed. Of course you're going to want $1 million in your high yield savings account because who knows what if could happen, because safety, stability, safety, stability, safety, stability. Okay? I'm going to get to this when we talk about that, how we solve for safety later on. But this hyperfixation on safety and stability is part of what's making us continue to feel unsafe and unstable. And again, I keep coming back to this too. It's this middle ground where, and also, let's make sure you literally have numbers in the bank account that actually do equal financial safety net. Okay? So let's go to that tactical safety stuff. So I have 4 things, because I'm not going to tell you like have this much in your savings account. Well, I sort of will, but like have this much in your savings account. And if you make this much a month, then like that equals safety. But I'm going to give you some parameters. Like when we think about financial safety nets, it's not just have as much in your savings account as possible, because that's not helpful. That doesn't mean anything to your brain. We just like to see numbers go up, because when numbers go up, that means more safety and stability. But we haven't actually equated, like, what does safety and stability actually equal in the bank accounts? Have you asked yourself that question before? That's the question you need to ask yourself. And then when your brain offers you a number, why is it that number? What does that number actually mean in your day-to-day life? So that's what these 4 categories are for you, okay? So tactical safety in your bank accounts look like these 4 things. The first thing is being 3 to 12 months ahead on bills. 3 months, 1 quarter to 1 full year ahead on bills. Number 2 is having money for healthcare related costs. Number 3 is having money for moving and travel. I'm going to explain these a little bit more as well. And then number 4 is having a baseline retirement account so that you can fund retired life, so that you can live not in poverty when you hit 60 years old. Okay? So those are the 4, like if you are on track for those 4 things, if you are working towards those 4 things, that is financial safety. Okay? So let me break these down a little bit more. 3 to 12 months ahead on bills. Why I say that, and especially for freelancers, creatives, those of us who have fluctuating income. I don't call this an emergency fund because we are consistently fluctuating in income. And sometimes our income dips below the baseline amount that we need to live every single month, right? So it's not an emergency when this happens. This is just the lifestyle we signed up for. Now, over the course of a year, you obviously want to be in the green, meaning you want to be making more than you're spending over the course of an entire year. But month to month, those numbers might fluctuate a lot. Like you might make double what you need to live 1 month, but then the next month you might only make half of what you need to live, right? That's why in the money flow method, I teach you to use your high income months to buffer your low income months. That's why we have getting 3 months ahead on bills as your very first money goal, because it's going to help pull you out of like, oh no, my income dipped. It's an emergency. No, it's not. It's not an emergency. It's how our lives were set up, right? So 3 months is your very first money goal, no matter where you're at. You need 3 months of bills inside of a bucket inside of your savings account, or a separate savings account that is called buffer fund. And it's 3 months of your baseline bills. Now, all that means is like your rent, your utilities, your Wi-Fi, and groceries and like entertainment. Like I don't want you basing this number along like a ramen diet. I want you, what is your normal lifestyle? Multiply that by 3. That's your very first money goal. But then as you want to increase your financial safety net, I say up to 12 months. So up to 1 year of being ahead on bills. Now, being a year ahead on bills is a bit high, okay? And I'm going to explain why in a second. But there is an element of where we're at in specifically in America right now, where there is just a lot of uncertainty. And even if you have like a normal 9-to-5 job, the job search on average is taking longer than it used to. And like, again, y'all know me, I love an exception to the rule energy. I don't think that what's going on at large has to be your experience, right? You could get laid off tomorrow and land another job in 2 weeks, right? That is a possibility. Is that impossible? No, it's not. So if you're in that situation, that's the energy I want you to be in. Like, yes, let's make a plan around what's happening on average so that we are over prepared rather than under prepared, right? That's what I mean by planning conservatively. So when I say 3 to 12 months of being ahead on bills, my sweet spot is 9 months ahead on bills. And this is going to depend on all of these things, by the way, are going to depend on your lifestyle. It's going to depend on your career path. It's going to depend on, do you have a family that you need to support? Do you have pets? Do you own a home? What kind of connections do you have? Do your parents have a home that you could go live in if worst case scenario happens? Do family members rely on you? Do you have other safety nets in place? Like, there are so many factors that might affect these numbers. So I'm going to explain to you specifically why my sweet spot for being ahead on bills is 9 months. And that's because I'm an artist, right? I'm a freelancer, I'm an actor, I'm a director, I'm a producer, right? That kind of work is extremely volatile, right? And the other kind of work that I do is here at Not Starving Artists, right? It's coaching, it's speaking, it's workshops, it's collaborations, it's those sorts of things. Both of those are fluctuating income, and both of those can be quite volatile, right? And I've created an element of stability and financial safety in my income over the years with these things. But at the end of the day, they are still, they err on the side of risky if we're like looking at it from a bird's eye business perspective, right? I also do not have my own healthcare. I'm on my partner's healthcare, right? So when I think about if something were to happen to all elements of my income, which first is hard for me to imagine because I've diversified the kinds of income that I bring in inside of Not Starving Artists. And also there's always artistic work, like kind of irons in the fire going on at all times. Also, I'm a scrappy girl. If something happens, like I'm gonna go out and find out how to make money. Like I'm no stranger to that. So I would never be without all income forever. So I know this about myself, my personality. But I also know I'm in like a higher risk category. And if for some reason my partner loses his job, there goes my health care, right? And so with those elements at play, I know that having 9 months of bills ahead of me would give me enough space and time to figure out what life was going to look like if shit dried up. If all my shit dried up, which is again very unlikely, hence why I'm not gonna have like 2 years of savings in the bank because like I'd rather have that money invested and doing a lot more work for me. So here's how I'll sum this up. My anxiety wants me to have 6 years of bills in the bank in my high yield savings account that I could look at. It wants 6 years ahead on bills. But my tactical brain knows I only need 3 months. Because if I go 1 month where like shit hits the fan and everything goes away and like I need to recalibrate and I really need to start using that 3 months of buffer fund and I'm like looking down the barrel and it's getting scary, like I know I'm going to figure something out. I know I'm going to be able to go out and make some money, right? Like I'm going to figure it out within those 3 months. But I want to like blend these two of like my nervous system, not necessarily my anxiety, but my nervous system knows that if I get into a really scary position, if I can see 9 months ahead of me, I can breathe and I can make clearer decisions. I can have a clear head when I'm moving forward in my life. Where I know that like I could make stuff happen in 3 months to pull me out of a scary situation, but I know I'm going to be an anxious fucking wreck during those 3 months. And I don't want to put myself in that position. So there's no exact science to this, but it's a dance between what you know tactically you absolutely need and then also what your nervous system needs. And then adding in all those other factors that I mentioned before, right? Like, do you have other kinds of safety nets? Do you have family that relies on you? Do you own a home? Is your lifestyle a fluctuating lifestyle? Like those things added together, you put all those pieces together, there's gonna be a number that feels good, right? That feels like it's settled, right? And you're like, that number feels good. Again, for me, that's 9 months, but that's not gonna be the number for everyone, okay? So second thing, healthcare. Healthcare obviously is dependent on employment in this country, / you can also get it through the marketplace, but a lot of people have been raw dogging with self-pay because of how crazy our healthcare marketplace has gotten. So we know that healthcare, our like physical bodies, that's important for us when it comes to safety and being able to go to the doctor when we need to. And if something happens, right, we can get the care that we need. So it's, again, you thinking about your specific situation. If you have a health insurance plan that is tied to your employment, great. Like you probably don't need a ton of support or safety net there right now, but it's thinking, do you have enough to cover, your COBRA plan if you get laid off for X amount of months before you would get a new kind of plan, right, from the marketplace? Like, look at the numbers too. Look at what that's going to cost you. One of my clients did this. We were prepping for her healthcare transition when she left her job to become like fully self-employed. And we ran the numbers with like estimates from the healthcare plan. We ran her numbers for COBRA and how long she would be able to stay on that. So you could go find these numbers. You could go play with them. So that's one thing. Like I mentioned before, I'm on my partner's healthcare. So it's not fully autonomous to me. It's dependent on my partner and his job. That puts me at, again, a little bit of a higher risk scenario, right? Because it's not dependent on me. It's not even dependent on my partner, but my partner's employer. Okay. So I know in my brain that I have money available to me to be able to get myself on a healthcare plan if I need to, or self-pay if I need to, right? Also, if you currently have healthcare, if an insurance plan, the thing that I always say in your savings account is to have at least your deductible or your out-of-pocket maximum in a savings account called healthcare. So you know that no matter what happens to you throughout a year, you're always going to be able to get the care you need because you're able to meet your deductible with the cash you have in your account. Or if you're able to have your out-of-pocket maximum, because we know our insurance is confusing and crazy, and we have two things, a deductible and an out-of-pocket maximum, because even when you meet your deductible, sometimes you still have to pay money to get the care that you need. So out-of-pocket maximum. Whenever I talk about healthcare, I just need to take a breath because it works me up into a tizzy. I've talked about this in a previous podcast episode about having to separate your emotional. I mean, we're talking about this here in this episode too. The meta frustration and anger about how bad things are in certain areas, i.e. our healthcare system being as fucked as it is. We have to separate that anger and that frustration with our ability to pay our medical bills, with our relationship with our money, to being like, and how do I just have the money in my bank account to get the care that I need? How do I make myself feel financially safe medically? And then I'm going to go process and scream about my feelings about the system, right? About how great I have to do that all the time because it never, oh my God, the stuff that I've had to deal with this year. I was trying to get my COVID and flu shots at the end of 2025. And I chatted with like 3 different people because one person told me we have to like opt in to choose Walgreens or CVS as our pharmacy. So we opted in to choose CVS, but then they were like, oh, but you have to get your vaccines at Walgreens. And I was like, okay, that doesn't make any sense, but sure. So we went to Walgreens to get our vaccines, but then they were like, oh, you chose CVS, so you can't get your vaccines here. So then I'm chatting with someone else and they were like, oh yeah, wait, we don't know the answer to this question because you opted into CVS, but they don't have your vaccines. Anyway, I was able to get my shots. It was all fine. It was just a fucking nightmare. And if that ain't the state of healthcare in America, and again, that's not even that bad, right? That's literally not even a bad worst case scenario. That's just like a normal day of having healthcare in this here country. Also, how grateful I am to even have insurance. So I digress, okay? Healthcare. Having a savings bucket, money set aside for whatever healthcare costs you think you will need throughout the year. If you have insurance, that's an easy number. It's your deductible or your out-of-pocket maximum. If you are self-pay or uninsured, then it's anything that you would need to self-pay for, right? Your doctor's appointments that you foresee needing, or making sure you have like those what if scenarios covered, like if you do need an emergency room visit. Now, what I'll say here too is if you pay a premium, your premium every month for if you're on a marketplace plan or if you just pay an insurance premium like through your work or some other way, that goes into your firm baseline expenses. So that's a monthly bill. This isn't part of that savings bucket. The savings bucket is for the stuff you have to pay like throughout the year, right? Not month to month in a premium. Okay, so that's healthcare. Moving. That's number 3, moving and travel, being able to take a flight, get a hotel, get out. These sorts of things we need money for. Now, there's a lot of different reasons you might need these things. I'm not going to list them all here, but if for some reason your neighborhood is no longer safe, and even outside of what's happening right now, right? Like I've had stories from clients and also friends where they had to remove themselves from their apartment for a time because something got dangerous within like their neighbor, right? Something was happening with their neighbor. Being able to physically remove yourself from a situation or being able to go support someone in another place who is feeling unsafe, whether that's a family member or a friend, or to be able to provide support that way. Also, moving in general, like if that you feel like that could be on the horizon for you, cool, like moving costs, and there's a lot of different ways to move too. Like, do you want to prepare to move all of your stuff, right? And like do a full proper move? Or do you just want to plan for, all right, we got to get out. Let's just like sell the shit, make sure we have the couple months of rent that our lease says like we have to give a certain amount of notice. So we need to have 2 months of rent in the bank to be able to get out of our lease, right? And be able to fly out. Do we have money for those flights if we've got to leave? Those sorts of things. And again, I'm not going to go into like hyper specific examples of this. This is just in general, moving your physical body to a different location if you need to. Now, this is also not just a doom and gloom category. For me, this category has been utilized a lot more for like really fun, cool, exciting opportunities rather than, oh no, I'm not safe, I need to get out. It's been cool like last minute projects or last minute trips or like, oh yeah, like I need a place to stay in between these two things and like I can't get back to my apartment and so like I'm going to put myself up. Like there's opportunity here. So we don't just have to be in like scary fear place, but that's the third category, okay? Fourth category is retirement. Retirement, investing, preparing for your future self because your 60-year-old self needs support from you right now. Okay. She's not going to be able to support herself in retirement unless she just continues to work up until the day she dies. We don't want her to have to do that. Okay. We don't want your retired self not being able to be self-sufficient and scraping by. That would be a really hard life. So we want to make sure that she has baseline necessities covered. Now, the number we're going to use for baseline necessities right now, because this number will be different for everyone, but a good benchmark is having 1.5 million in a retirement account by the time you turn 60. What this allows you to do is it allows you to pull about $60,000 a year out every single year for the rest of your time. Okay? So you're able to have $60,000 you're like paying yourself from your investments when you're retired. And that's a really good baseline number to start with and to shoot for when you're doing retirement calculations and like, what is the minimum that I need to be doing and what do I want to shoot for? So what does this mean month to month? Because 1.5 feels like a really big number when you think about it, just like, oh my God, how am I going to save that much money? That would be insane. Exactly. That's why we have compound interest. That's why we use retirement accounts. Also, side note, I was going to do a whole launch for this, but I'm at capacity, so I haven't been. So I'm going to share it with you. I was even going to do like a podcast promo before like the actual podcast start. Nope, you're getting it right in the middle of the episode. I have released module 2 inside of Cashed Up Creatives for free. It is the Finances 101 module, which it's literally the entire financial education you did not get in school is this one module. It talks all about banks, online banks, high yield savings accounts, credit cards, credit scores, credit reports. And then it also talks about investing and retirement. It's the entire like financial jargon dictionary, and I simplify every single word for you. You're going to understand what index funds are, what target date funds are, what an IRA is, 401ks, what compound interest actually is. It's going to walk you through what to invest in order to be able to have 1.5 million in retirement at any age, whatever you're doing, whatever kind of lifestyle you have. Like, this module gives you all of that. Go get in on it. I'm going to have the link in the show notes to go get it for free. What will happen is it'll have you put in your credit card information, because it's like how you have to check out a product, but it's going to charge you $0. So don't worry, it is free access. You'll see it say Finances 101 free access. Go get in on it and go through those modules. The entire length of all of the videos is 90 minutes. An hour and a half of your time, and you're going to get all that. All the education you were supposed to be given in schools that we were not given is in that module. Okay, so if you don't know what I'm talking about here, go get Finances 101. Okay, so back to 1.5 million in retirement. How do you actually amass this amount? Cool. If you're 25 years old and you want to retire at 60, this means putting away $450 to $500 a month to hit that 1.5 million. If you are 35 years old, this means about $1,300 a month from 35 until you are 60, okay? That's how you hit that 1.5 million marker. If you want to go play with different numbers, because I'm only giving you 2 examples here, you can go to investor.gov. They have a really great compound interest calculator. Also, these numbers are factoring in that you have nothing in retirement right now. If you're starting from 0, this is how you get 1.5 million, okay? So that's the numbers. This is the baseline safety. These four things, you add in your personal life factors, right? All the things I've mentioned before, and you're going to be able to come up with actual numbers for each of these things. These should be your top money goals, right? The first money goal for every single person is 3 months ahead on bills. But then these other 4 areas, this is how you actually give yourself practical financial safety. Now, I do have people who hit these 4 things. They're already on track for all these 4 things, or they have these 4 things. And now they start giving themselves like way bigger financial goals that they're like pushing themselves to meet, or they've decided they want to retire at 35 instead of 60. And so they only have 10 years to like become financially independent. And sometimes what I've found is that these push goals, these goals that really require you to like put a lot of energy into managing your money, spending less, making more at a high level that kind of feels unsustainable. A lot of times it's coming from, well, the more I have, the more safety I have. The more I have, the more what ifs I can dispel. And to an extent, that is true. But I want you to get honest with yourself of like, what else do you need to solve for the fear, the safety fear that you're feeling, right? I said this when I was talking about this on Instagram. I was saying that like having an extra 4 months of bills in your savings account is not going to dispel the fear of like, oh no, what if our economy collapses, right? Like there is something else that needs to be worked on. And I would say like, that fear is a lot more based in financial education, really understanding how our economy works. And it's part of the reason why I'm not afraid of our stock market collapsing and the US dollar going to 0, because I understand the economy. I understand the players who are at play. I understand how the stock market works. And again, this is why Finances 101, this is why I'm giving it for free right now. Because 1, I don't want you getting your financial education from ChatGPT. She can't spell strawberry. I don't want her telling you what bank account to go to. I don't want her explaining credit scores to you. I'm not saying it's all bad information, but like, no. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is there's so much more fear now about like what could happen in our financial system. Like get yourself educated, because that in and of itself is going to dispel a lot of fears. But the other thing here is like, and then we need some nervous system regulation. We need to be working out. We need to be getting sunlight in our eyeballs. We need to be getting the fuck off of our phones so we're not hearing people yelling at us about how bad our world has gotten and spiraling us into a pit of despair all the time, every single morning when we wake up and right before we go to bed at night, right? There's a lot of other things that we need to do to bring ourselves into a more calm, safe place that has nothing to do with like how many more months ahead on bills can you get, okay? Okay, so I got ahead of myself in my outline here, but now we're going to talk about emotional safety. How to give yourself emotional safety. I have 3 things listed here. Feel everything all the time, and feeling that is not prompted by doom scrolling. Because a lot of emotions can come up from scrolling and consuming content. And that breeds anxiety and stress and anger and fear. But I'm talking about like letting yourself feel everything all the time that is not prompted by that. As you're just going about your life and your day-to-day off of your phone and you might be hearing things, but like as you're communing with the world, let yourself feel the shit that comes up that you like saw the day before when you were scrolling. You're going to have to feel through that at some point. You need to give your body the time in silence to process. I like cried during my workout today. I don't know what the fuck that cry was about, but it was clearly about something. But I was doing my workout and all of a sudden I felt all the emotions bubble up and I just sat on the mat doing my fucking skull crushers, just tears. And that is what it... God. That's what emotional regulation looks like, at least for me, is crying whenever my body wants to cry, right? Letting her. So that's the first thing I'd say. The second thing, building relationships, especially in your geographical area. Creating safety is also about knowing you have support, a support network. So a lot of us have this virtually and with like whether it's family who don't live in close proximity to you anymore or like long distance friends. All my best friends are long distance friends. But having geographical community, even if they're not your best friends, like knowing the people in your building by name, knowing your neighbors. And I know that's weird for New York, but like know your freaking neighbors. Getting involved in stuff in your literal vicinity of like 10 blocks, right? Know those people or get involved. Like know your barista, know your bodega people, like know the people in your vicinity and know their names and level up. Ask them for a favor every once in a while and then be ready to give favors to them. Be ready for them to ask you for something. That's going to help you with this feeling of safety because it's like even if I need help and I can't give help to myself, there's other people. We're like spreading out our fear and anxiety and we're kind of holding each other's hands and making each other stronger. Like that's what community sport is. So that's the second thing is like going out and actively making that happen. And then the third thing is asking yourself, is there a different choice I would make right now? Usually around money, moving, and career is like when we feel really scared, when we feel really unsafe, when we feel really activated, we go straight into like problem solving mode or we shut down, right? But when you're in that problem solving mode, it's like, how do I fix it? How do I fix it? Okay, do I need to do something different? What do I need to do? People are telling me to do this and I don't know. You actually need to like sit down and walk yourself through whatever you're trying to solve. My partner and I do this about once a week now. Like we'll see something scary on the news or like something will happen and we'll sit down and debrief about it, or we'll just like debrief about the week's terrors and just be like, okay, let's talk about this. And is there anything different that we want to be doing? Whether that's our money, like we don't want to move, but it's like, okay, let's just acknowledge we don't want to move. Great. Let's acknowledge, like, is there anything financially that we want to be preparing for or doing differently? Like, we even talked about our investments the other day together of like, okay, like with the AI bubble and like with the economy right now, is there anything different we want to be doing? And the answer is no. It's just let's not weight all of our portfolios on the S&P 500. Mine's more weighted in the S&P 500 right now than it is in my target date fund. So my plan is just throughout the rest of 2026, I'm going to just be investing in my target date fund, not in my S&P 500. There's no radical strategy there. It's just, okay, I'm clocking that's what I want to do moving forward. Also, if you don't know what those words mean, go get Inside of Finances 101. That will all make sense to you. There's no panic right now about what you're invested in, but I also did a video on Instagram about the S&P 500 not being diversified anymore. So go watch that video too, and I explain what all of that means. But it's those sorts of things. It's like, okay, do I actually want to be doing anything different? And then we'll also talk about like, okay, are there things we want to be getting involved in, right? Are there other things we want to be doing in addition to what we're currently doing? Do we want to change directions? Like there's those sorts of questions too. So instead of it being like, fuck energy, it's a, Okay, and practically, is there a course correction? Or is this just something that I need to emotionally regulate through? Because a lot of it is just having to hold a lot of fucking shit in our bodies and with our eyeballs. And there are things that we can be doing about it and that we want to be doing about it. And then that's all we can do, right? And then we just have to move through it, okay? Which is why we talked about emotional regulation here. So that's the third thing. Ask yourself, is there a different choice you would make right now? And actually walk yourself through the answers there. Okay, so a couple of last things here. You can do every single thing right and something could still happen to you. And that is that shit that is hard to sit with, right? We as humans are just like terrified of death. And it's so fascinating to see all these biohackers who are trying to cheat death, right? And it's like, if I do everything right, I won't die. But it's like, you could get hit by a car tomorrow. Like, that's the fact of it. And like, also at some point you will die. You can do everything right and you will die at some point. That's that existential shit, but it's real and we have to make peace with it. Right? So also just acknowledging that like that's where some of this energy is coming from, is wanting that reality to not be true, and yet it is, okay? You can't solve for that with a number in the bank account. There's a lot of things you can solve for with the number in the bank account, but that one is something you can't solve for, right? Or a career path can't solve for it, right? Like there's the big what if, but it's not even a what if. The what if is just like a when, right? But there's a lot of what ifs that just can't be solved by anything, right? It is just the nature of being a human in this lifetime. Can you tell that over the past couple of years, shit's gotten way more existential over here in my brain space? I feel like every podcast episode I record now is just like, and the state of being a human is that we will all die and we have to come to terms with that. Okay, so here's the thing. Yes, work on safety. Work on financial safety and the tactical goals. But the only real way to pull yourself into not feeling like you're just chasing safety and stability all the time is to get clear on what you actually want and to focus your headspace on like what are the desires rather than just I need safety and stability, right? Not just baseline survival. The more we're chasing just baseline survival and just getting by and solving for every what if, the more of our brain is only focused on worst case scenarios that we can solve for, right? We need to shift into what are the best case scenarios that we're so excited for, and let's start solving for those. Now, 70% of your brain gets to be like glitter and rainbows of excitement, and we're doing the practical things to solve for safety, but it's not overtaking our entire mental real estate. We have a very hard time with this one as artists because our success has always been told to us that like you can pay your bills with your art is the marker of success. But what if your success gets to look so much more glittery and joyful and fun than that, right? And the bills are of course paid, but here's the dream. And how can you be focused on building and crafting and chasing after dream excitement that is not just booking the series regulars so that I continue to book series regulars so that I can pay the bills. And like, yes, it's my dream, but consistently working is the dream. We need to come up with new dreams artistically, right? Because that's just going to keep us in that survival, starving artist energy. Okay? When you're focused on something bigger and more exciting and full of joy and possibility and hope, when that's your focus, with also understanding the tactical, practical safety nets that you're setting up for yourself, and you're setting those things kind of up on autopilot that you're making progress towards at every financial CEO party every single month, right? You have those set to go, so you know your safety net is being built or is built. Then you just get to flood your brain with the thoughts of expansion, less mental real estate on just safety. You get to feel joy, hope, expansion, right? And that's what you get to focus on. And that's the beauty of simplifying your money. That's the beauty of having a money system that allows you to simplify not just the management, but simplify how you're hitting your goals. That allows you to hit all those goals kind of in the background on autopilot. So you can have room for like hope, glitter, dreams, making work, making art, contributing to the world, contributing to society, and not just focused on I need to make sure I'm safe. I need to make sure I'm safe. I need to make sure I'm safe, right? That's the beauty of it. The last thing I want to say here, and it's from a conversation I was having with one of the people inside of Cashed Up Creatives in our monthly coaching call this month. We were talking about like getting existential, and when you simplify your money and when you have a handle on your money, when you feel like you've got it, and it kind of feels a little bit too good to be true of like, I don't have to work as hard to do all of this. Like, it is kind of happening on autopilot. I have space now to think because I'm not just so financially anxious all the time. What's going to happen is your brain will start offering you existential thoughts that it hasn't had the capacity to think about. Like, is this really what I want to be doing? What am I doing with my life? What am I contributing to the world? What do I believe about life and why we're here in this lifetime? Like, you start to have capacity for those questions to come up. And I have seen it with almost every single client who has gone through this process, like has gotten their money shit together, gotten to a point where it is quite automated and quite second nature, like their money muscle memory is kicked in. And then all of a sudden this stuff comes up because finally it has the space in the room too. That can feel quite scary and like you're doing something wrong, but you're not, right? So even just acknowledging that like, wow, my brain's now being flooded with those questions. Yay, it's because my money's so simple. I don't have to be anxious about it anymore. My brain's trying to find something else to be anxious about, or it now wants me to start answering those big questions, but do I have to answer all of those questions today? No. Let me go like do something else in order to maybe distract my brain. Maybe this just means I need to get more activities in my day-to-day, right? Like, are there other things I want to be doing? I had talked to a bunch of clients about this as well. Like, when you remove spending as a way to numb or disassociate or out of boredom, even when you remove that, when you heal some of your overspending or your impulse spending, what happens is it feels like there's this gaping hole, and like you now are tasked with the question of like, how do I fill this? And I have one client who specifically, like, this example always comes to my mind when I talk about this. A client who really was healing her spending, her impulsive spending. And she was like, what am I doing? And so she decided she wanted to like get more involved, like with political activism against like for gun laws and gun safety. And so she like became an advocate for that. Cause like it's really interesting what happens when you start to like heal some of your money shit, the space that opens up and what starts to fill it. It's fascinating. And it also can feel like a weird chasm. So just know nothing's wrong if that's the place that you're in right now. It's normal, and you don't have to answer all of those questions today. There are things for your journal every couple of days to really start ruminating on and taking action on if you want to start taking action differently. And also, sometimes you just need to go for a walk or put on a movie or like go volunteer somewhere or start reading more books or make more art. Like, there's so many ways you can fill that. It doesn't mean you have to spend all that time answering those existential questions, okay? So that's what I want to end on today. Go get yourself enrolled in Finances 101, and I will see you back here next week. Thanks so much for tuning in. Come join me on Instagram for more on how to build a simple, sexy relationship with your money. My Instagram handle is @NotStarvingArtists. And if you want to dive deeper with me, head to the show notes to learn more about one-on-one coaching. If you love this episode, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend that you want to get rich with.